Wafa Sultan, nice to have you on the program.
Thank you so much for having me on.
You have to be awfully bold, I would think, to write a book like this with that title, especially A God Who Hates. You're bold?
I am bold. I have to be bold.
What makes you so bold? Why do you have to be bold?
Because, living under Islamic Sharia for 30 years of my life has made me bold and has given me the courage to speak up against women abuse in the Islamic world. Mm-hmm. It's time for someone to speak up. Mm-hmm. It has been going for 1,400 years.
And the kind of abuse against women that you're talking about specifically is what? What are we talking about here?
Women are not treated as a human being. It's enough to understand that they're not under Islamic Sharia human being. They're maybe second, maybe last class in society. Mm-hmm. They have no rights at all.
Is it fair to say this is true across the board in Islam or in certain sects of Islam? And I ask that because we don't want to think of Islam being a faith that's practiced only by terrorists any more than we want to think that every woman in every aspect of Islam is maltreated.
The problem is deeply rooted in the Islamic teachings. Mm-hmm. If you read the life of Muhammad, the prophet of Islam, and how he treated women in his life, you understand why women are abused throughout the Islamic world.
And the reason for their being abused is what?
Because, in Islam, Muhammad has to be the role model for every Muslim man. And that's why they are treating their women the same way their prophet had treated his women.
I can only imagine when you say publicly, as you just did, what you uttered about the Prophet Muhammad, that's life-threatening.
It is the truth. I don't care if, I know I'm risking my life, to say the truth, but at the same time, I am making a positive change in the world because someone has to tell the truth, and it is my life. Islam is the way I lived in Syria. Islam is the way I was taught in Syria. I'm telling you my story. I'm telling you my own suffering. No one can refute my suffering.
Tell me more about your suffering.
I dedicated my book to the memory of my niece. My niece was 11 years old when she was forced to marry her cousin. He was over 40. He was very abusive, and she had no right to ask for divorce. And I always remember when, she's her husband's home to her father's, begging him, Dad, please let me live at your house. I cannot take the abuse anymore. And her father would say, it's shame for a Muslim woman to leave her husband's house without his permission. You need to go back and I will talk to him. Eventually, she killed herself. She committed suicide, setting fire on herself. And for me, it's enough to tell you this experience for you to understand from where I came. I had witnessed hundreds of crimes committed against women in the name of Islam.
I hear your point about being courageous enough as you are to speak this kind of truth, to publish a book like this. Tell me how, in your mind, in your heart, you imagine that this kind of truth will ever catch hold. It is so antithetical to your earlier point of how the faith is practiced. How does it catch hold?
I know it is hard for people, especially here in the West, to accept what I am saying. But I will repeat it to the last day of my life until they get it. Mm-hmm. It is very hard. At the beginning, since I came to this country 20 years ago, I started writing. I am a very well-known writer in the Arab world. At that time, I thought I only needed to educate my people in the Arab world. But unfortunately, I have reached a point that people in the West need to be educated about Islam too. Because, you live by the American ethical code, which prevents you from judging people on their religion. But they need to understand that Islam is not only a religion, it is a very dangerous political ideology.
But my question is, how would we as Americans, how would our government leaders, in interacting with other countries that allow these atrocities, this kind of abuse to happen, how would we engage them on this issue?
Once you admit the problem, you have way to solve it. At the beginning, you need to understand that the problem is deeply rooted in the Islamic teachings. For me, I believe it doesn't take a rocket scientist to comprehend what Islam is about. I tell you one thing. You need to randomly choose any city in any country in the Islamic world. Enter any mosque in that city and listen to the imam. Listen to his Friday sermon. You will understand what Islam is about.
Let me ask you this. Is it possible to address the issue that you are raising in this book about the maltreatment of women by Islam? Is it possible to address that issue without demonizing the faith, or do the two things go together?
No, I cannot do that.
Okay.
No, I cannot do that. You need to read. It's not impossible to get it. It is not. Just read the life of Muhammad. That's all what you need. Read it, with open mind and face Muslims with your question. He married his second wife, Aisha, when she was 6 years old. He was over 50. That's all what you need to do. I believe 90% of the Islamic texts have never been translated to any language. The kind of Islam I am speaking about now is the Islam I lived, is the Islam I was taught about. And that's the true Islam.
Is it getting any better as time goes on?
It has to be. It has to get better. It has, with many voices, like my voice, going against it. Of course, the situation is getting better. Because for, 1400 years, Muslims were trapped, were, prisoners of their own belief system. And now the truth is out.
Finally, then, what is your hope for what this book can or will do?
My hope is for people in the West to get the message, to open their mind, and to know the naked truth about Islam. Once they do, the war on Islamic terrorism will be winnable.
Her name is Wafa Sultan. She is a Syrian-born American psychiatrist and author of the provocative new text, A God Who Hates. The courageous woman who inflamed the Muslim world speaks out against the evils of Islam. Ms. Sultan, nice to have you on the program.
Thank you so much.